Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Gran Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Gran Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Gran Group by emailing thegran, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Gran Group with Edina Realty, 3-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, David and Dan discuss the Twins' 4-game series against the Seattle Mariners. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins split their opening 4-game series against the Seattle Mariners, taking 2 wins. Dan, I gotta ask, are you more optimistic than you were preseason? Are you more pessimistic, or are you about the same?
That's a great question. I'm more optimistic after this because of the pitching.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into a lot of this, but I thought, it's cold, first of all, in Minnesota at this time of year. And so the bats aren't always going to be there, I think, in early April. So the fact that the pitching kept them in the games here and then obviously, won them at least game 4, I'm pretty good. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think I'm actually more optimistic, and I was the most optimistic out of all of us heading into the season. So I think I'm a little bit more optimistic, but again, hitting always takes longer to catch up to pitching at the beginning of the season. Now, that's funny to say because of what happened in the Twins game 3, which we'll talk about, but I do still think that our pitchers maybe appeared to be better than they will show themselves to be the rest of the season.
And I think too, and this was pointed out in the radio broadcast, which is all I get when the Mariners are playing the Twins out here, is that the Mariners are not a great hitting team. At least they weren't last year. And so you got to wonder what's going to be different when they face the Dodgers in this quick 2-game series at Target Field that comes up next.
Yeah, it's just a disappointing time for that series. We'll talk about that later, but I hate when you have a team that comes to Target Field that doesn't come often and you get a Tuesday and a Wednesday. Are you kidding me?
I know. And as a child, David, I don't know if you know this about me, but I was a bit of a sports nerd and I tried. I know. So there was a stretch of time when I would put together schedules for various sports. So the NFL was the easiest, and I could put together a pretty workable NFL schedule, and then I would simulate it with dice rolls. We're not going to dwell on that. And then I tried.
Dan had a lot of friends, ladies and gentlemen.
A lot of friends. But baseball's really hard, right? Because you got all those teams, all those games. So I do have some sympathy for the baseball schedule makers.
First of all, the baseball schedule makers, they get a list from each team what days they can't do it, and they put it all in a spreadsheet and have Excel run a program for them. Dan.
There's a great 30 for 30 about this, David.
Yes.
And I'm not a guy who pushes 30 for 30s. No, but it used to be just this couple that I aspired to be. Yeah. Did you share that with me originally? And this is what
yeah, we talked about it for sure. I don't remember if you shared it with me or I shared it with you.
Because I was thinking, they're kind of old and I'm pretty young. Maybe there could be a transition here. But they never asked me. They went automated instead. Well, luckily this is going to get better in the next couple of years when everybody plays everybody.
Yes.
And we get rid of this interleague wall that has been constructed and gradually being taken down. So I love it. I'm excited for this. But we can't get to the Dodgers yet, David. We got a whole series here to talk about.
An entire series, Dan. With that, let's go ahead and jump into our series recap.
Series recap.
So game 1, Twins lose this one 2-1. I was in person for this one. I love going to the home opener. I like the feel. I like the sounds. I like the excitement.
You just don't like the other people, I think.
I would love the home opener if there were nobody else in the stands. I think I'd love it that much more. It was just me. But it was me and my wife. My parents came and watched the kiddo, which was great. We had a great meal at the Red Cow, and then we headed down to the stadium. And it just felt, Dan, like the Twins were going to pull this one out, and they certainly had the opportunity to do so, but they could not get it done. We had our 2 big boys. We had Buxton, we had Correa, we had them at the plate with runners in scoring position, and they couldn't get it done. I was starting to get a little concerned about all the advertising dollars that the Twins were putting into this Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton train, and here they are, they're stars, and they can't get it done.
Yeah, I mean, that was a disappointing way to begin the series. The Twins lose it 2-1. They've got lots of opportunities. The Mariners score right away. The disappointing part in some sense is to spoil a good outing from from Joe Ryan, or can we call it a decent outing and then a really good bullpen performance?
That's a very fair assessment because it's the first outing for Ryan really this season, so you knew he wasn't going to have a very long leash as far as his pitch count was concerned. So he did really well, I think. 2 earned runs and 4 innings pitched halfway through the season. Terrible line, right? I would hate that line. But first start of the season, I'm okay with it.
I do struggle with the 4 walks that Joe Ryan had and just excusing those as an early season hiccup. I don't know. Isn't that a little concerning?
I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there. I mean, he's starting opening day, and he's really technically a rookie. He's not fully stretched out. He's not to midseason form yet. I think we can give him a little bit of grace here, especially because all the pitchers need to do this season is all they needed to do last season, Dan. Keep the Twins in the ball game, and Joe Ryan did that.
They get the 1 run really from Gino Urshela, the home run, which lovely. But again, you leave 6 guys on, you go 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position, and especially like you said with Buxton and Arraez struggling.
Well, it was interesting. I think we'll talk about this a bit later, but Arraez not starting, pretty I'm going to say bizarre. Why is that guy not in the lineup, Dan Thompson?
This is the rotation system that Rocco's going to use to get everybody exactly the same number of at-bats over the course of the season.
So sort of the big moment in this game, folks, if you didn't watch it, there's a runner on, bottom of the 9th. Gary Sanchez comes up to the plate, and he gets a hold of a ball, Dan. And I'm thinking, there's 2 outs. This would be an epic story to tell about a home opener that I attended. And the ball goes back, and the Mariners left fielder goes back, and he's got it measured, Dan. But to me, it looks like he's going to have to jump to keep this ball from leaving the ballpark, and the wind just knocks it down, and he catches it without even having to jump, leaned up against the wall. My heart just sank, Dan. You could just, the air, Dan, left that stadium such as the Metrodome air left the stadium.
I was thinking that might be the metaphor you used. I love that metaphor.
Under the pressure of the snow, yes.
Do you remember having to hang on to your hat as you exited the Metrodome?
Yes.
I love that feeling.
Oh, who didn't, Dan?
Well, let's talk about Game 2. This felt like an Alexander Colomé game, didn't it, David?
Yeah, sounds right.
Are you sure he wasn't out there? He wasn't a late signing the Twins brought in just to fill a roster space? Because the Twins do lose this one again, but in agonizing fashion. They blow a lead. It's 4-3 Mariners here, 2 runs in the 9th.
To be honest, what I was most frustrated about is I knew as soon as Duffy gave up those hits, all you were going to see on Twitter and anywhere you could read about the Twins was everybody saying, we shouldn't have traded Rogers. And I think that's a bad take. The guy was on the last year of a contract. You got a starter in return, young guy with years of team control left and a good bullpen arm. I think you take that deal every time, Dan, right?
I think you do. And I think sometimes we forget that teams do blow save opportunities, and it's and they hurt every time that happens to the Twins. It's probably going to happen to the other team too. And so, and in some sense, if you're a Mariners fan, this game is a great disappointment in the 8th inning, right? Because Byron Buxton hits that 2-run home run to shift the lead, and if you're a Mariners fan, you're like, oh, what disappointment. So I think people got to see it both ways, and they do have to remember what you're pointing out, because I think it was a good deal for the Twins.
Well, and it should be pointed out as well that if Rogers was here, the idea that Duffy didn't get the 8th and do the same thing is crazy. That's certainly what would have happened. We should, just not to go back to Game 1, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but Duran in Game 1, being able to see his MLB debut, I will always remember that, Dan, when he let 2 guys on and then he struck out the side. It's pretty awesome.
He had a dang good series, all things considered, aside from, the trouble he got himself into in Game 1.
So anyway, let's keep moving here, Dan. Game 3. This one, much better. The Twins offense came alive. 10-4 Twins victory, and they got up early, Dan. So they had, I love the box score here. 5 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth, 1 in the sixth, 1 in the seventh. The Mariners sort of mounted a slight comeback here, 4 runs in the third, but after that, Dan, their bats went quiet. This was a fun one to watch.
Well, and Buxton hit 2 home runs in his first 2 at-bats, so there was a string where he had 3 straight at-bats with home runs, and they were bombs. And, well, I should say, the first one was a bomb, and the next 2 got out within a couple snaps. I mean, that was so fast, almost to the same spot. I was watching the replay, and it literally looked like this, I maybe had clicked on the wrong link. Exactly. Was it the same play?
So many home runs, Dan. Everybody got a home run, it felt like.
Well, and it was, because at this point in the season, through this game, the Twins had gotten all of their runs by home run.
Yes.
And I don't love that. It was nice to see them actually, rally and put together a couple hits in Game 4. But Gary Sanchez's grand slam, just nice to see a former Yankee doing some damage at Target Field for the Twins and not against them.
I don't like how comfortable they still seem at Target Field, Dan, even though they're in Twins uniforms. I guess I should be happy about that. But it just just seems like they came in like, oh yeah, I can hit here.
Well, and we should point out too with the pitchers, Bailey Ober pitched. He got through 5 innings. Maybe we're going to start calling him inning-eating Bailey Ober. Doesn't really kind of roll off the tongue. He just pitches 5 innings, 4 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. All that damage being done there in the third. But other than that inning, he looked pretty good.
Danny Coulomb comes in, and then Alcala Pagan, the first time we saw Pagan, and then Romero finishes out. But again, at this point, it's just, again, don't do anything stupid if you're the bullpen, right? Like don't give up any big rallies. Let a couple guys on base if you have to, but my goodness, just get the job done.
That was maybe one of the highlights of the series for me, was just how well the bullpen played aside from Duffy's 9th inning in game 2. I mean, the bullpen really did its job.
So there's not much else to say about this game. I feel like we should talk more about it because the Twins offense was so prolific. It felt like sort of a circa 2019 Twins win. I wonder if that's any foreshadowing here for what they did to the ball this year, Dan.
You think baseball is pulling a fast one on us? Now you're the conspiracy theorist here?
I'm still wearing my tinfoil hat over here, Dan, I think.
Well, I'm just waiting for them to move second base because, again, there were moments in the series where I thought, I think that would matter just a little bit.
Okay, well, let's move forward here, Dan. Game 4, another fun one. Twins win this one 4-0. Not as powerful as far as the offensive performance in Game 3 is concerned. But this time, Dan, Dylan Bundy, staff ace Dan Thompson. What do you know about that?
I don't know a lot about Dylan Bundy, again, other than he's facing the Mariners on a cold day. But 5 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. That's something that we'll take.
Well, and I kind of thought we had talked about maybe they were going to combine starters and like sort of split the outings. But the way that Rocco has decided to manage is we're just not going to use the same starter in a row for like 9 games in a row is what his plan is.
Because Archer's going to go, Paddock's going to pitch in the next series. So are they doing a 6-man rotation here?
I don't know how many guys. I'm starting to lose track, Dan. I think he was going to call Jax up too just to keep the streak going.
If they're going to expand the rosters though, why not? Right? Why not use that as on a starter? Let's stretch guys out gradually.
Can you imagine? Like it's just the first 12 games of the season and the Twins have yet to repeat a start.
I'm sure if anybody can do it, it's going to be Rocco Baldelli. Other things here in Game 4 that stood out, Caleb Thielbar looked good. Buxton carried the team with, gosh, how good is he, David?
He's very, very good. I don't want to talk too much about Buxton because I'm sure he's going to make an appearance later in this episode, at least a couple of times, Dan. But just really a big confidence booster. It was nice to see Duffy get in and close out a clean inning. Well, clean meaning no earned runs, but he still gave up a hit. And then Smith came in and Duran. And Smith, for the record, he gave up a walk, but like the air from Kirilloff, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but my goodness, Dan.
Well, and there was another moment in this game that, again, I could only hear it on the radio, but Miguel Sano being sent.
Oh my goodness. Here's the deal. Sano's, I don't know what else to tell you other than it was a bad call by Watkins, the third base coach. He sends Sano. And here's the thing, Dan, they have a great camera angle that shows the ball coming in from left field, and it shows the cutoff man catching it. And you're watching Watkins, and all you can think is, what are you possibly thinking? Like, it's not close. People who you barely explain the rules of baseball to, you say, hey, here's the deal. If somebody tags him with the ball before he touches home plate, he's out. Anybody in the world would be like, well, why can he stop? Is that against the rules? Can he not stop at that bit? It was a bad call from the third base coach, Dan. And there was another instance where I'm not sure about this one. Okay. I don't know if it's on the third base coach or not. Kirilloff is on third. You got runners on second and third. Second and third, Dan. Second and third, not first and third, not first and second. Second and third, no outs. Arraez at bat. The infield is in, Dan. I know how you love infield.
Oh, I love the infield in so much.
Infield is in. Correa hits it's not that slow. It's fast enough that it gets to the shortstop in a decent amount of time. And Kirilloff goes home. What are you doing? I honestly, I can't fathom why you would go. And I can't imagine the third base coach was like, yeah, take off. It's like the infield is playing in and it was hit to the shortstop. What are you doing?
Baseball is really complicated, David. It's very hard to remember some of these things when you're a professional baseball player something. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I wanted to go back to the Sano one briefly because So the play happens, the inning is over, and then obviously Dan Gladden and Corey Provis got a chance to watch the replay. And Dan Gladden's spin was that Watkins must have seen the ball miss the first cutoff man. Did he overthrow somebody? Because that was their spin, and so that Watkins was basically sending him, because when you see the ball sail over a cutoff man, you ignore that there might be another cutoff man, And they also pointed out, well, in Sano, he kind of starts to slow down a little bit as he gets to third and then ramps it up.
No, because Sano knows that he's not Buxton. Like, right. Sano isn't like, I'm really going to make this play close at home. No, the catcher was like halfway between home base and third base, catching the ball and tagging Sano. It's like, what are you doing?
Maybe, in the days when you could just plow into the catcher, I think maybe that's okay because you got Miguel Sano rumbling down the baseline, right?
I am surprised that Gladden went on the defensive there for Watkins. They must be buddies, man.
It's early in the season, right? So he's got to... Anyway. We should get into our other segments here, David. First time of the season.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Pucket!
Pucket's Picks winner.
I got to tell you, it wasn't close. It wasn't close, and it wasn't close by a larger margin than it really should have been, seeing as the listeners, or Hogs picked in the listeners' stead, took Buxton, won with 19 points, and Dan had Sano, and I had Correa, and they combined for -5. Sano scoring negative, not a surprise to me. Not a surprise to me at all. Correa scoring negative, a surprise to me, Dan.
Right. Well, so Miguel Sano, I was just happy that Miguel Sano, I think he only struck out, it was only a handful of times in the 4 games. I was pretty impressed with Miguel Sano's play, except for the fact that he didn't have a hit. So that hurt my scoring.
He had like 3 walks, and the rest of his at-bats were basically strikeouts.
But he saw so many pitches in this series, David. He's just getting ready. He's just warming up for that Dodgers series. I'm sure it's going to go really well for him. I'm sorry, I'm being very sarcastic this episode, David. I should be straighter laced. Can you run through the Pucket's Picks rules just so the listeners know how we're scoring things?
Yeah, absolutely. Good call. So basically, each episode, the listeners will get to choose a player who they think is going to perform well in the following series for the Twins. And then Dan and I also get to pick a player. And then we use these rules to determine the scoring for the players that we've picked. So it's 1 point per base, 1 point per RBI, and 1 point per stolen base. And then it's a -1 point per strikeout, -1 point for grounding into a double play, and -1 point per error in the field. And then we tie rank with most home runs and then least strikeouts if we need to go to a second tiebreaker. Then the loser always picks first for the next series, but the listeners or Hogs, if he's in studio, will always be the first pick off the board.
I think last year I was negative a lot, David. So I figure I'm going to, Sano's kind of the boomer bust guy. Hopefully I'll one of these times actually catch him on the boom. And
last season wasn't even close, Dan. I ran away with it. There were like 8 series left, and I was not concerned at all that I was going to come away with that victory.
I was definitely rooting for the listeners at that point. I think I was kind of sandbagging my picks just so to give the listeners a chance.
Anyway, let's keep pushing here, Dan. Beast versus bench.
Beast versus bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
So with Beast versus Bench, this is a segment where we pick who we think was kind of the best player for the Twins, the most crucial player. That's the Beast. And then a guy that I don't know, how would you describe Bench? Would have been better off just being on the bench?
Correct. Or underperformed where they should have performed, that sort of thing. Basically, you'll likely know who the bench is, Dan, each series, I would think.
Is that because you can just look at who I picked for Pucket's Picks?
It's not a bad call. Like if they gave you betting lines on who was going to be the bench, I would go with Dan's Pucket's pick almost every week.
All right, well, with Beast, I think we're in agreement here. It's got to be Byron Buxton.
I don't even know I don't know who else you'd choose.
He got hit by a pitch in one of the early games. It was game 1 or game 2. And again, I'm listening on the radio, and Corey Provis immediately is saying, everybody, it's okay. It just grazed his jersey. He's going to be fine. It's just that reassurance. Because, again, what are worse things to hear than Byron Buxton just got hit by a pitch?
Not much. I mean, other than Byron jumps or dives for a ball. Like, those are all 3 things that you just do not want to hear when you're listening to a game on the radio, Dan.
Or Josh Donaldson's really chugging towards second base, I think. He's really turning on the burners. That's got to be Buxton. What about bench? Who's on your bench?
I gotta go with Sano. This was bad because he was so poor at the plate. He did perform well in the field, though. He made a couple of tough catches on Correa's poor throws for whatever reason. I thought he was this platinum glove winner from what I understand, Dan. But he had a couple of bad throws. Sano saved one of them for him, but he still got an error on the second throw. However, the guy who you have on your bench, Dan, is just as deserving, I think.
So I went with Alex Kirilloff. He had 1 hit in the series, and he had a really bad play in the field.
It was rough.
In game 4. And so for a guy who we both thought is going to have a breakout season, or at least I can't speak for you, but I think that he's going to have a breakout season. This was not a great series.
I hope that doesn't continue for him because, Dan, there's a lot of guys who would like that left field starting spot.
That'll pick up here in Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
Gilberto Celestino makes the team here as the fourth outfielder in kind of what I think was a surprise to both of us.
Yes.
And to be fair, Rooker got traded, but I think even Brent Rooker's not making this team before Celestino in that calculation.
On the fringe, certainly.
So what I don't get is why is Celestino not starting any of these games here? Right? If the idea is you want your fourth outfielder to play, right? I mean, like, you got to think if Jake Cave is on this team, he's probably making a start, right?
Maybe. It's hard to say. I think that you want to get him consistent playing time, but I think it's very difficult to do because you have so much confidence in your other corner outfielders.
But I think, too, with Kirillov's cold start to the first 3 games, I think it would merit a change in left field to get Celestino out there to at least get some at-bats. He didn't have a single at-bat in this series.
That leads well into my Rocco's Rewind a little bit because Arraez not starting in game 1, and then what I didn't understand is in game 1, Rocco pinch hit Arraez for Urshela instead of for Kirilov because it was Urshela, Sano, Kirilov, right? That's the batting order. So what I thought was going to happen would be Urshela, Sano. If Sano doesn't get the job done, then Arraez is going to pinch for Kirilov because Urshela was the only one who had any offensive success so far that game because he had the home run. So I didn't quite understand that. And then this is the part that really bothered me. So Arraez gets on base. So I suppose hindsight 2020, he made the right call pinching for Urshela, right? But Arraez is on first base, and I turned to my wife as soon as Arraez gets on base, and I said, okay, and now they're going to pinch run Gordon for Arraez. And they don't. But then after Sano pops out, foul ball pop-up, up comes Sanchez, then they pinch Gordon for Arraez. It's like, what is happening here? Like, you wanted to wait in at bat just to see? Like, I don't understand what the thought process was there, Dan.
Yeah, I think with Sano up, he's a candidate to hit a double to the gap. I don't understand why you wouldn't make that change if you're going to make it.
Let's keep moving here, Dan. Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
I went with Byron Buxton's 2-run home run in the 8th inning of Game 2 that gave the Twins a 3-2 lead because then it was so fitting, of course, that Byron Buxton has a great moment, and then it gets blown in the 9th inning by Tyler Duffy.
So Gleeman wrote an article at The Athletic. I don't know if you saw this. This was nuts, where he documents each time Buxton has had a big play in a game, the Twins versus the Mariners, and for whatever reason, Byron makes a big play, and then the Twins manage to blow a lead, or they lose in some spectacular Minnesota sports fashion. It's amazing. So honestly, that article, one of my favorites so far this season, and it's not close. I giggled so hard as I'm reading through all of these instances where Buxton does something amazing and the rest of the team just deflates again, like the Metrodome, Dan Thompson.
Well, it's like they think that Byron Buxton can do everything, and they sometimes forget, you guys, you do have to, there's a little bit more baseball to be played here. You got to get 3 more outs.
Yes.
What's your moment?
Yeah, so I have to go with Sanchez's grand slam. One, I think it helped him shake off in game 1 the opportunity he had, and he didn't punch his ticket. But this time, Dan, my goodness, he got a hold of that ball. And I love the sort of very reserved celebration, just kind of points at the bench, no screaming, no nothing, just goes about his business. But that way, Dan, the way that he celebrated had a sort of Yankee energy about it. Ooh, I don't know exactly how to explain this. Sanchez stood in that box, and it's like he knew that he was going to hit a home run. And honestly, Dan, that's how I feel like every Yankee feels in every at-bat at Target Field. They step into that box and they're like, yeah, I'm probably going to hit a home run here.
Are we going to be talking about the Catch Me If You Can? Always staring at this pinstripes. I mean, how many times? Because that's all I'm thinking about is that maybe the Twins should they change to pinstripes? Like, should they have an alternate jersey there just so we can pretend? Really cool to see Gary Sanchez do that, and really, Urshela was pretty dang good too in this series. They both had some key plays. I am a little concerned about Gary Sanchez playing catcher. He had an overthrow here in Game 4, so more DH please for Gary Sanchez. Let's go to Mauer's musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
So this is a segment, folks, if you're new to the show, where we just talk about questions that we have for the Twins moving forward. So Dan, why don't you start us off?
Well, which of the 15 starters that the Twins are going to have is going to be, kind of the diamond in the rough, the guy who's really going to end up being a contributor? The Twins need some starters to step in and actually play and play well here. And maybe it will be one of these guys. But again, I want to see them against somebody better. So I guess this Dodgers series with Archer and Paddock playing, and Paddock has obviously faced the Dodgers many times in his career. Maybe that's why they traded for him.
Don't you normally want a pitcher who hasn't seen the offense of another team before?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Well, we'll see. We'll see what they got from those guys, because this was an encouraging start, all things considered. And Mariner bats, questions aside, to see 5 innings out of Bundy was great. What about you?
My question also has to do with the pitching, but the back end, Dan. After we see Duffy's saved opportunity gone, diminished, blown, I believe is the correct terminology here.
It is, yeah.
The question is he going to continue to get those save opportunities? Or now that Duran has shown himself to be able to get out major league batters, Dan? And to be honest, anybody throwing over 100 miles an hour, basically every pitch, I mean, how do you not think, yeah, that guy could probably be a closer? I mean, as long as his location is good and he's not walking guys, I don't mind that guy on the mound, Dan.
Isn't that kind of how closing has gone in baseball, where you just have a flamethrower out there? I think of, Chapman, for example, for the various teams he's played for now, the Yankees, the Reds, the Cubs. Maybe Duran is the Twins version of that, and the guy that you saw in his debut, David.
Yeah, that was super fun. And again, it was very concerning, and everybody in the stadium could feel it when those first 2 guys got hits off him. And then when he started to bring the heat and he started to be in the zone, but not right in the middle of the zone like he was to start.
Right.
It got real exciting in that stadium real fast.
Series grades.
Series grades time, Dan Thompson. The first series for your Minnesota Twins. What do you got for them?
Well, okay, so I'm going to start with a question, as I sometimes like to, David. If these games were flipped, if the Twins won the first 2 games in the same fashion and then lost the last 2, would that change your grade? Is there a recency bias here?
Yeah, probably.
I have a B, and I think there's some recency bias there, but I will justify it this way, because I feel like that's a little high for a split series at home. But you figure you saw every piece, I think, that you wanted out of this Twins team, just not always together. Right, you saw the power. You saw Correa and Buxton play well. You saw the bullpen, and you saw starting pitching. Like I actually really like how all the elements are clearly at least present on this roster.
I gave them a C+ because they didn't win the series. I don't think your B is just crazy, Toe. If we're going to be honest, I don't think it's crazy talk, but I do think that. I mean, we're talking a couple of plays, Dan, a couple of different bounces, and the Twins win 3 of 4, or even potentially get away with a sweep of a 4-game series, which is pretty rare in baseball. So
that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah, but I think you're probably right. My grade probably would have been lower had they lost the last 2 and won the first 2. Maybe that's because
then we'd be talking about a missed opportunity. We'd be talking about the sweep that got away in a different way.
Yes.
Than when a 100%. Sweep that was obviously not there after the first game. All right, well, let's go to our newest segment, I suppose this would be, Herbie's Headline.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's Headlines.
Yeah, so this is where we talk about something that's not necessarily Twins related, but just something that's happening in baseball. I think it's a good time to check in with our twins of previous generations. And by previous generations, I mean 2021 Twins who now play for other teams, Dan. We have Josh Donaldson getting a walk-off winner in his Yankee debut. So that has to feel great, right, Dan?
Are you rooting for Josh Donaldson this season?
No, I didn't like rooting for him when he was with the Twins, Dan. I didn't like rooting for him when he was with the Twins. I'm certainly not going to root for him when he's with the Yankees.
So there's no hangover there.
It would be harder for me to find a player who you could put on the Yankees who I could cheer less for than Josh Donaldson.
Ooh, I have one. Okay. Chuck Knobloch.
Ooh, that's fair. So you got to remember, though, Dan, there is a little bit of an age discrepancy between you and I. So, yes, my dad took me to a Twins game, and he got company tickets. And so we got to go talk to the players after the game, and we could ask for autographs. And Chuck Knobloch walked right by. I think I was like 6 at the time. And I said, Chuck Knobloch, more like Chuck Snobloch. And my dad had to like shush me.
That's a good one, though. He was easy to say goodbye to in some sense, right? Even though it hurt at the time.
Yes.
And the other player that we need to talk about is Mitch Garver, who had an illegal slide that cost the Rangers the game.
Yeah, so it's extra innings here. Rangers against the Rockies, and there's runners on, and basically the Rangers are about to tie the game, potentially take the lead. And Mitch Garver is running to second base, looking like it's going to be a double play. But Garver slides hard into second base, and he disrupts the throw from the second baseman, causes an errant throw, and causes an extra run to score for Texas. However, the call gets overturned, and they say that Garver's slide was illegal because he could not reach the base from the position that he slid from. So basically, he slid with the exact purpose to interrupt the throw from the second baseman, which is a no-no now in this decade's MLB, Dan Thompson.
All I think of is Justin Morneau when somebody slides into second and Justin Morneau taking a hit to the head, and then his career was never really the same after that.
No.
Though I am sympathetic to that rule change, but I don't know. That's a tough play. It was a tough play because you got to think if he just reaches out a little bit more with his left hand to try to at least be a little bit closer to the base and make an effort to try to be safe, then I think he maybe gets away with that.
Could be. I still wonder if they would have called it just because of how blatant it was, even if he could reach the base. It was a pretty aggressive slide there towards the second baseman, Dan.
All right, well, here we go. Redemption, David. Pucket's picks.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Pucket's picks.
Well, the listeners...
Why are you laughing at me there, David?
Maybe you'll
I hear the chuckle.
Maybe you'll get redemption. It could happen. The listeners are obviously going to take Buxton, and honestly, until Buxton gets... If Buxton gets injured, I'm pretty sure Buxton will likely be the first off the board for the remainder of the season, Dan.
Well, to be fair, even Buxton not playing would get me more points than I got for this last series with Miguel Sano. So,
true story.
I'm going to take Carlos Correa because... he is an all-star player, and I believe when good teams come to town, your all-star players need to play well, and I think Correa's he's gonna play well.
I suppose so, Dan Thompson. I'm going to take Jorge Polanco. I think that he's looked pretty strong out of the gate. He has been swinging at some outside stuff that has not been close, but then in those at-bats where he's swinging outside, he seems to come back with a hit. So I'm confident here that he's going to score me some points, at least more than Correa did for whatever reason this last series.
Are you going to go to these games?
I wanted to go to the Wednesday game, but I have Friday off work, and so I don't know that I'm going to have the time to take a half day on Wednesday. I'm still considering it, though. I might play it by ear with the weather, but I would like to see Kershaw pitch, so that's where I'm struggling a little bit.
I mean, we're running out of chances, right?
That's what I'm saying.
To watch a guy like him pitch. So, all right, David, how about you send us out?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on Twitter @MinForTheWin and find our Min for the Win Facebook page. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast to be notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating, that'd be great. A reminder that our episodes are now available on our YouTube channel. And if you could drop us a like and subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.